Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Conquest Old Dominion Focus. Sorry for the long delay here. I've been on holiday in sunny Bali, so hopefully you guys are having a good time here over the long Easter break, and happy to bring you back some more Conquest content. So I'm gonna throw a rather quick video this time. Hopefully you guys already got your Old Dominion. I haven't gotten mine yet, but some of y'all already gotten your boxes. Then congratulations, you're on your way to assembling your army. So possibly one of the biggest questions that you have over Old Dominion is which one should I assemble first? Do I assemble the Legionnaires? Do I assemble the Praetorian Guards? Do I assemble the Moroi or do I assemble the Kheres? If your gaming group allows you to proxy, then it doesn't matter. You can just pick whichever model looks the coolest. However, if you're going into some sort of tournaments or if you're very sort of attentive to being specific, like for example, Legionnaires does have a spear and the Praetorian Guards have the sword. So you do want to have your model as closely to the representative as possible. Then do continue watching this video and we'll bring you some insights on which model should you assemble. So by now you should have two boxes of dual kits of Praetorians and Legionnaires, as well as two boxes of Moroi and Kheres. You should be wondering, should I just make one of each? That could probably be a good move for your starter. You want to get a taste of each of these units, both one Legionnaire and one Praetorian Guard, as well as one unit of Moroi and one unit of Kheres. But then, what would I do if I want to expand from the starters? What model should I buy more and which should I assemble more? So before we go into the question specifically to that, let's look at first the differences, the key differences between these two units. So Legionnaires and Praetorian Guard both serve as roughly the same role in an army. They're a medium infantry whose job is mainly to stay alive. They will be used to carry your commander into the front lines while they do scoring because they're medium, and their objective is there to survive as long as possible and to do as much scoring as possible. Legionnaires does it a bit more differently. Legionnaires are cheaper. They do come with sort of a lower stats compared to Praetorian Guards. Clash 2 defense of 1 with the rules of shield, support 1, animate vessel. And if they trigger their memories of fall, they get phalanx and support +1. So immediately just looking at the stat line and how cheap these guys sort of serve as the equivalent of things like men-at-arms in the other faction, or the warriors from Dweck. These are the frontliners whose job it is just to stay alive as long as possible, and as long as that they can contribute their time on the battlefield, they will do a lot of utilities. The Legionnaires come in with a little bit of different flavor because they have the support special rule, which means that you do want a fairly large block of these units. My preference, of course, if you're bringing a commander into it, or not just commander in general, but if you're bringing a unit of Conquest, should at least put them at an odd number because of how broken and shattered works. For example, if you have brought 7 stands, you should be broken on 3, and then you should be broken again at 1. If you are carrying your character unit, that means that they have to kill every single one of those models to a man before that unit is shattered from broken. So it is important that you keep these numbers in mind when you're constructing your army. Now, let's go back to the roles of Legionnaires. So the Legionnaires come in as most mainstay options for the 2 spellcasters, which is the Archimandrite and the Hero Deacon. They come in as the mainstay option as well for the Strategos, both the mounted version and the infantry version. They also come in with the Silly Arcs mainstay option. So really, Legionnaires come into play almost at any point that you want them to have. They are very straightforward. At 120 points, you get 12 of these guys, so one model costing 10 points to bring. So you do want these guys to have, to bring a lot of these guys. A block of 5, a block of 7, a block of 8. Because of their support rule, they will take advantage of that because they will have the volumes to hit, even though they're only clash of 2. And if you're not charging, you're not inspiring. So, that's Legionnaires. Of course, you can also bring some additional command models. My preference is to bring the Optio because you're given the Vanguard ability, and probably you can also bring in the Profane Reliquary, which gives an aura of Death +1 if you want to give them a bit more bite. So let's stop talking about Legionnaires for a bit and see the second option, which is the Praetorian Guard. Now, Praetorian Guard comes in at 165 points, fairly more expensive than the Legionnaire, which we're looking at 120 points. They are 45 points more expensive than their compatriot. However, they do come in with a clash of 2 as well, and they have a higher base defense of 2. And I'll tell you why this is important in a little bit. They also come in with shield. They have a memories of old of Phalanx, and they come with draw event Bastion 1. So the Praetorian Guard serves as sort of the more elite bodyguard of your commander, even though it doesn't have the rule bodyguard, but they're mostly going to be there. Again, they fulfill roughly the same role as a Legionnaire. They're there to bring your commander to the front line, to give their bodies to guard the commander, and to contribute as much as point as possible. However, the Praetorian Guard does come in a bit more expensive, but what do these points give you? First of all, they give you an extra defense of 2. Now, this is important. If you look at both the Legionnaires and the Praetorian Guard, a lot of their defensive capabilities is turned on when they activate. The Memories of Old only triggers when they activate. The Draw event only triggers when they activate. So the Praetorian Guard, the difference is they have a base defense of 2 plus shield, so they have a base defense of 3, while as the Legionnaires only comes in at a base defense of 2. Of course, the Legionnaires can go up to defense 3 with the Phalanx special ability, but the Praetorian Guard can go up to defense of 5 for 165 points. Defense 5 units with no resolve is not a joke. These guys, unless you're fighting something that has a large amount of cleave, like the Dragon Slayers, or have things like Brutal Impact, they will not budge. You put them into an objective and they will stay the hell there until the end of the game if needs to be. Of course, you're paying an extra 45 points for the Praetorian Guards, so again, these are not cheap options, and you should really consider whether you are okay with paying that much more for something that essentially only has maybe 1 or 2 extra defenses. They also don't come in with the rule of support, so there is a little less incentive to bring a large amount of Praetorian Guards in a list. Of course, the Praetorian Guards also come in at a very expensive restricted slot in Archimandrite, in Deacon, Hero Deacon, as well as both Strategist option. They only come in as a mainstay option for the Silly Arc, where they come in with both the Praetorian and the Legionnaire as a mainstay option. So just from looking at these two simple comparison, of course you are most likely going to be bringing more Legionnaires than you are bringing Praetorian Guards. That said, for your first creation of the army, where it comes with 2 boxes of of dual kits, you should at least construct one of them, because then you'll know what are the key differences between these 2 models, these 2 units. But for subsequent purchases, and again, this is just a recommendation from me, I would go with 3-to-1 ratio of Legionnaires versus Praetorian Guard for the following reasons. Number 1, Legionnaires plays better with a larger amount of block. think of force-grown drones and their support abilities. They might not hit for a lot, but there is a lot of them. They can clash. They essentially have roughly the same fighting prowess as a force-grown drone. They have Clash of One and support. If they inspire, become Clash of Two. Legionnaires also have a Clash of Two base, and they also have rules of support. If you happen to unlock their memories of hold, they can go to support 2, which means that suddenly your backline is contributing a lot of dices to the attack, and that could be quite stingy to the opponent if they want to charge in a unit of Legionnaires. So, number one, they operate well with a large block, so there will be more incentive for you to bring more of these Legionnaires. Number two, they come in as a mainstay option for basically all our generals except the Silly Arc and the Fallen Divinity. So for these two reasons, and reasons number three, if I can add, is also that they play roughly the same role as the Praetorian Guards, in which they want to guard a point, they will stick to that point and they will not move from that point if you're playing an objective that sort of forces you to be static. So 3-to-1 ratio of Legionnaires to Praetorian Guard is kind of good. So if you want to buy more boxes of these dual kits, you can buy 3 boxes of this. For example, if you have 4 boxes, 3 should be converted or changed into Legionnaires, and then the rest goes to Praetorian Guards. In the second part of this episode, we're going to talk about should you make Kheres or should you make Moroi. Again, the beauty of this Old Dominion box is that they come in dual kits, which means that you do get a lot of options when you want to make them. But of course, other than just conventional wisdom, here's a guide for telling you should you build Moroi or should you build Kheres. So let's look at Moroi and Kheres first as what their roles are on the battlefield. So the Kheres role is a bit sort of as a gun line, almost. They're not a very good gun line, with Barrage 1 and 16 inches and the rule of sure shot, not obscured by regiments or terrain, as well as strong arm due to long range. So they are a very decent, I'm not saying they're very good, but they're just a fairly decent missile unit. They have a movement of 6 with volley of 2 with barrage 1 and 16 inches, meaning that they can move and shoot from a range of 22 inches. And because of their obscured rules, and this unit will always count as being obscured. They also have evasion of 2, which means that on the counter shot, they won't be shot as much. Of course, the most interesting rules of the Kheres is that they come in with the rule of Priest 1 per stand, so they are able to cast their 2 signature spells. The first one is Drain Will with a range of 12 inches. If the caster scores 1 to 3 successes, then reduce target enemy's regiment defense value by -1 until the end of the round. If you score 4 more successes, then the target regiment receives 1 additional hit from any aura of that effect until the end of the round, in addition to reducing its defense. Of course, with the rules of Priest 1 per stand, unless you of course unlock the Memories of Gold, which gives them Priest 2 per stand, you won't be having successes of this caster score of 4. But the fact is that Drain Will can modify the defenses of their opponents is huge, which means that on a lucky roll, they can go Drain Will, and then they do the shooting themselves if they're close enough for 12 inches. Of course, then the second spell is Insanity, which, never bring the spell in an old Dom mirror because it won't do anything. Range 12, attunement 3, inflict 2 hits per success. Target enemy regiment rolls defense rolls using their lowest unmodified resolve characteristic instead of their defense values. Wound resolving from this spell do not trigger morale test. And then if you have tier 2, the spell costs 1 additional wound for each unmodified resolve roll of 6. And it's also cumulative with tier 3, which causes further morale tests as well. This spell, while it looks cool in practice, because that they only have basically Priest 3. Of course, if you can go up to Priest 6 when you have the Memories of Old, then you won't be hitting a lot of this. there is a large potential for success because it's inflict 2 hit per success, but with just magic being sort of finicky in general, I wouldn't like to use the spell a lot. Again, of course, if you're bringing the spell and then you have another old Dom player, then the spell is pretty much useless unless you can get their cultist or assassin to be targeted with the insanity. In general, Drain Will seems to be the best spell that they have, because simply modifying a regiment's defense is super important, especially if they have already regiment defense of 1, they become 0, which means that they can roll no defense saves from the attack. Of course, with the whole packages in mind, you're looking at 165 points. And also keep in mind the rules for Kheres and both Kheres and Moroi is that they count as the restriction. However, they cannot be joined by character stands because they are spooky ghosts. Moroi feels a bit similar-ish role to what the Kheres does, except they trade away their priest spell cast. Well, they trade away the range barrage thing with 2 daggers. They have attack of 2 each with clash of 2, and they can get cleave 1 if on their memories of old. These things at 165 points plus the spell at 180 points can output a grand total of 25 hits on the charge. Clash 2, clash 3 with cleave of 1 if they unlock their memories of old. And the scariest part of the Moroi is of course in their Aura of Death 2 rules. So they can do one move that I really like from Old Dom, which is just the move and charge. They have a speed of 6 with fluid formation. That means you can sort of squeeze in 1 extra inch during the movement when they start. So they have roughly a threat range of 6 plus 6, 12, 13 inch plus whatever you roll on the d6, and that will tie up a lot of models. You can move and charge into an unprotected flank of an enemy, and then when that enemy activates, if you activate first, you get to punch them with your 25 dice attacks, but if they activate first, they will take 6 auto hits from the Aura of Death 2, and then they have to take a resolve test from the Terrifying 1 special ability. Of course, that they do have spells. Unfortunately, none of these 2 spells are quite interesting. Immolation is fairly fine. Keep in mind that they only can use their spell if they have memories of old, so this is a bit of nerf to the unit in general. But understanding why this nerf was made during the whole sort of playtesting process, I can understand why this nerf is needed for this unit. This unit simply performs a bit too much activities in what they're doing. In any case, when they activate, they get to use their spells, as well as they can do some swinging. And as a draw event, which means that you need to have at least memories of old 2, so you can use it as a draw event. Otherwise, then they have to sacrifice one of their action in order to perform the memories of old. So let's look at the key differences between both the Kheres and the Moroi. So for Kheres and Moroi, the sort of decision that you need to take is that there's only one commander that has them as an option. Of course, there is the eccentric option, which allows you to bring out of faction stuff, but Old Dom has a lot of interesting restriction option to begin with, that simply spending them on a single unit of Moroi might not be the best usage of that ability. In any case, in Archimandrite, the Kheres comes in as their mainstay option, and then Moroi comes in as their restricted option. So only one commander is allowed to bring them, which is the Archimandrite. So for Kheres and Moroi, there simply isn't a lot of decision to be had. You can simply build one of each. Of course, you cannot bring the Kheres, you could instead bring a unit of Legionnaire or Cultist, but Cultist does not exist yet in the game. Well, they exist in the army list, but not as a model. So if you want to bring them properly on a battlefield, then you have to at least bring 2 units of Legionnaires if you want to bring in 2 units of Moroi, which is not terrible. Morois are extremely scary at 180 points. They're not as scary as things like Vanguard Clone Infiltrators, which is also a light unit. Oh, do I mention it? Or they're also a light unit, so they can potentially come out at turn 1. And then they can move with their fluid formation. They can already double move across the battlefield. So that's a lot of distances that these guys can cover. So back to the initial point of the video. Should I build a Moroi or should I build a Kheres? The sort of chicken shit the chicken shit opinion is that you should just build one of each. One unit of Moroi and one unit of Kheres. But but me personally, I would build 2 Morois because I love Moroi a lot. They are an extremely scary unit, even they have been nerfed several times already during the playtesting cycles. But if you just bring a unit of 5 of these and you bring 2 of them, so we're looking at 10 Morois. Yes, you have to complement the army building with 2 Legionnaires, but 2 Legionnaires is not sort of the end of the stick. They can do a lot of work. So you bring 2 units of Legionnaires with your Archimandrite, put your Archimandrite in one of them, and then you bring in 2 units of 5 Morois. So you have 10 Morois. They can do a lot of work. A lot of work. Like I said, they're not too scared of being shot by a ranged unit because they have evasion. With the evasion 2, they can shrug off most small fires, and it's basically a ward save at basically 2 or less. And they have no resolve, which means that whatever. And of course, if they get hit a bit, the Archimandrite can just heal them off just by a little bit, just patch them up just a little bit. And because of the aura of death of 2, and sort of the combo that they got from the Archimandrite spell itself, you can give them the spell that increase the aura of death. And, you can also bring Immolation, which gives them also an extra aura of death. So suddenly they have an aura of death of potentially 5. So when the opponent unit activates, they will take 15 auto hits when they activate, and all these 15 will go straight to defense, and then they have to make a resolve test at -1 due to terrifying. And then they punch back because they have evasion of 2. The chances of them dying in 1 hit is not too high. Then they activate and then swing back with their attack of 2. Moroi is a ridiculous unit. I had the pleasure of testing these guys out, and I think they are extremely fantastic unit, and you guys should try it out. Again, do take this opinion, of course, with a bit of grain of salt. I'm not trying to sell you out of Kheres or anything, but in my personal opinion, you should build 2 units of Morois. Of course, when you then have later more units of Morois, sure, you can build 1 Kheres just to try it out. But load up on these guys. These guys will see a lot of play, even though they're only restricted to just 1 commander options. And I think you'll be happy with their performance. And that's it for this week's episode. I'll try to bring in more episodes. I know I did promise you guys to have that how to expand from the starter box, considering the Old Dominion. I'll have that up in a few days or so, hoping that we can get back to regular video creation. If you guys are watching this during the Easter holiday, then have a good Easter, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.